G'day legends, my name is Isaac Shrek and I host the Noob Spearo podcast. It's interviews with spearfishing frothers from around the planet. And today's a little bit different. We are doing a topical based podcast and it's actually a little bit of a business case study. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Ocean Guardian, the parent company to the Shark Shield technology, went into liquidation earlier this year. But the good news is it's been purchased by Ed Martin, owner of Killshot Spear Guns, and a couple of other guys. And I've gone in and pretty much they're rebirthing Shark Shield back into the market. And I put this information out to the Noob Spearo community on Facebook and on our Instagram and asked people if they had any questions for Ed with what's happening with Shark Shield moving forward. So it was really good interaction. If you asked a question, thank you very much. I think we had a pretty broad range conversation about Shark Shield. So Shark Shield is an electrical deterrent device. It's the most proven and powerful technology on the market for deterring negative shark interactions. That's a really short summary of it. If you have anxiety about sharks or you dive in really dirty water where people tend to have maybe more negative shark interactions than most, like for example in South Africa where they're diving 15 feet viz or less with hectic populations of great whites at times, Shark Shield isn't just a nice to have, it's potentially a necessity, a bit like wearing a seatbelt if you're rally driving. I would suggest it's a similar sort of analog. And I killed that word today, by the way, on this podcast, so just a quick heads up. We talk about warranty questions, new price points, potential product failure points, and the bugbears that people have experienced, what the plans are with potentially upgrading it into the future. We talk about what's happening with when Shark Shield will start hitting shelves again, how people are going to potentially get their Shark Shields fixed if they do have some faulty devices, but also about just getting that supply chain back up and running and getting them into stores again. Because I tell you what, Shark Shields are highly popular and it'll be cool to see it back on the market. I was stoked when it was someone I knew that had bought it. Like you'll hear a bit more about it in just a second. Anyway, I'm not going to go on and on. Last call. Noob Spearo runs spearfishing courses, intermediate, beginner. We also run trips and charters. Go to spearfishingcourses.com.au. It's no ego, full froth, great place to learn, in-person courses with absolute certified legends. I'm running an intermediate course and charter off Mackay this week with Tom Sandstrom, Tim McDonald, Kurt Raymond. I just pretty much load these charters up with people that get the vibe, the no ego, full froth vibe, and really like speaking into people and helping them develop their spearfishing skills. That the journey to mastery in spearfishing just seems to go on forever and ever. And so it's pretty cool to rub shoulders with people like this. If you're interested in doing a trip or a charter, it doesn't matter where you are in your spearing. If you're right at the beginner end or you're 2 years in and already punching out 30-foot dives, like it's a good opportunity. Check it out, spearfishingcourses.com.au. Hey, let's get into it. Ed Martin, founder of Killshot Spear Guns, now owner or part owner of Shark Shield or Ocean Guardian. We're going to get into this big time. Here we go. Today's Noob Spearo podcast is brought to you in partnership with Adreno. Live it, breathe it with the world's largest dive store. Huge range of equipment, always growing, always changing. They are the world's largest dive store. They are available just about everywhere. They have hassle-free returns, massive range of equipment, price match guarantee, and you can check them out online. You can even use the code Noob Spearo to save $20 on every purchase over $200 at adreno.com.au. Check them out. Boom. Absolutely mint customer service. Specialty spearfishing equipment, elite spear gun performance components, unforgettable reliability. You want to find out where to buy this? Punch in Neptonics.com and shop at the best US spearfishing store, Neptonics.com. Free shipping to the lower 48 when you spend over $199, and you can use the code NOOB10 to save 10%. This is your chance to save dosh. Buy deadly good gear and experience A-grade customer service. Will you shop with the best? Visit Neptonics.com. Use the code NOOB10 to start shooting 35-pound muttons tomorrow. Actual performance may differ from advertisement. Please refer to terms and conditions to see if you're eligible to be a legend like Shrek. This advertisement was not even endorsed by Jerry and the team at Neptonics. Hoorah and God bless America. How cool is it going on a spearfishing adventure with like-minded frothers? I love tapping into this vibe and energy and being around people that have exactly the same values and want to just get their froth on for a week of spearfishing. If you are interested in doing a course, charter or trip, I would love to hear about it. Go to spearfishingcourses.com.au/interested and register. Tell me where you want to do a course or charter. Let me know. And if I've got a bunch of people that are keen and like-minded, we're going to put that trip together and make it happen. Again, go to spearfishingcourses.com.au/interested and fill out your details there. And let's get some trips on the road and get out there and get our froth on with a spearfishing adventure of a lifetime. A little bit of a longer read today to get started on this Noob Spearo podcast, guys. I'm joined by Ed Martin. Before I start chatting with Ed, I wanted to read out this. It's an article from businessnewsaustralia.com. It says, the Sydney-based company that spearheaded commercialisation of the Shark Shield technology has gone into liquidation recently, but administrators have revealed its IP has been successfully sold to a group of US investors led by Florida speargun entrepreneur Ed Martin. The Shark Shield technology emits electrical signals that are picked up by the sensitive ampullae of Lorenzini receptors in sharks, causing muscular spasms that prompt them to swim away in most cases. Initially developed in South Africa at the turn of the millennium, the technology was licensed to a South Australian company called Sea Change Technology, which further developed its own iterations and patents and eventually became known as Ocean Guardian, a company that went into administration in mid-2024 and was resolved to be wound up on the 30th of August. Prior to administration, the group recorded a net loss of $1.2 million. In August, the Australian reported the company owed $600,000, and then basically this guy took over. His name was Litosh. He says, I met with various interested parties, held discussions about recapitalising Ocean Guardian through a DOCA or the acquisition of assets outright. She says the new owners are ordinary unsecured creditors in the Shark Shield Proprietary Limited and long-standing users of Shark Shield products. As a user and vendor of Shark Shield products, we were so impressed by the product's effectiveness that it was an impossible opportunity to pass up, says Martin. We're appreciative of Ms. Tosh's professionalism and diligence in making this happen. She and her team are an absolute pleasure to work with. And then it says here, the boat and fishing product lines are planned to be shipped in the summer of 2025, and development and deployment of the large-scale shark barrier will continue as well. Mr. Martin and his team remain committed to the company's tradition of research and development of shark deterrence technologies and will continue to offer what he says is the only effective shark deterrence product on the market. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a longer read, Ed, a bit of a mouthful. But, I wanted to bring people up to date with Shark Shield, Ocean Guardian, and where Ed Martin from Killshot Spearguns comes into the equation. Was the newspaper article useful for that?
Well, if you're asking me, yeah, it kind of outlined what all's going on in the last month. So for sure.
Okay, cool. That's what I kind of wanted to. What I wanted to get to.
Yeah, if I kind of jump into kind of the genesis of how this kind of came about, it's kind of you know what? But before I jump into that, Isaac, thanks for having me on again. It's always nice to talk to you.
So, well, just quickly on that, guys, if you haven't listened to it, Ed Martin from Killshot Spearguns, we recorded a couple of cracker episodes a few years ago, particularly about DIY speargun building, and we learned a little bit about Ed's past. I think maybe we did 2 or 3 episodes, Ed. But before Ed came on the podcast, he was actually a patron listener. He loved the podcast. He invested in it, and then I happened to notice that I had a patron who built timber spearguns, and that's how we met. Started the conversation. Then you came on. Now you've been a partner for a long, long time. And Shark Shield were a partner too. And then I found out you had bought it. I was like, this is like some happy, weird, alternate universe we're in here. So it was great.
Well, eventually I'm going to be putting all your kids through college, I think, because, let's be very honest. The people that are most at risk of shark attack are spearfishing. And you reach a tremendous number of them. So I will absolutely look to set something up to promote the product, with your listeners, and we'll come up with some kind of a decent discount for them, so that there's a little bit more incentive to listen to the podcast.
Yeah, love it.
So, it's been an interesting ride with Ocean Guardian and Shark Shield. I think I started using them about 10 years ago. It's funny. I actually talked to the guy yesterday that I bought my first one from, and he's now my client.
Yeah.
So,
Full
which is
circle.
kind of exactly. But it was kind of interesting. The administration was announced. My partner had received an email, and it basically said that the company was in administration, and unfortunately, he wasn't going to be getting his money back on a couple of the units that he had purchased. And he had purchased a couple of boat units, and so he wasn't concerned about it. But he walked into the shop just coincidentally. He walked into my shop, and we're standing there talking. And I've known him for several years. And he saw one of the boxes sitting up on top of the shelf, and it said Shark Shield on it. And he's like, "Oh, is that the new packaging?" It's like, "No, that's the old packaging, but it's an empty box. I just kept it around because I'm a reseller of it." And so we talked for a minute or two about the company, and the fact that it was a shame that it's you know out of business for the time being. But why don't we just buy it? And I was like, "Yeah, well, okay, well that's great, but we don't know, you know, we don't know anything about the company at this point, other than the fact that we know that the technology works." And he's like, "Well, I'm serious. Why don't we sit down? Let's do a due diligence, and we'll buy the company." And literally 20 minutes later, he walked out, and um, we were set on a course of action. So, and fast forward about 3 months. I think it took about 3 months for us to get through everything. And we wound up inking the contract, and we're slowly trying to stand everything back up. I'll get into some of the nitty gritty on kind of my philosophy on it, but
Yeah.
I guess I ought to take a breath and let you ask a question, or
Yeah.
make sure I'm making sense.
Well, this
So,
one's this one was put really bluntly. Jack said it actually. The question pretty much is, why did Ocean Guardian go broke? I think it's a good place to start. It's probably, I know you don't want to be cruel to Lindsay and this team at Ocean Guardian, but Jack says, "Hey Shrek, I know it will be a tricky question that they may not want to comment on, but I'd be very curious to know if they have any insight into why Ocean Guardian gathered so much debt and went into liquidation. Obviously, Ed and his partners are confident he can make it work, and I'm curious what will be done differently."
um, okay, so we've got two questions there. What happened in the past, and then what are we going to do with it? Which actually segues right into what I wanted to talk about anyway. But let's talk about ancient history here. I figured I needed to brush up on my notes. So this afternoon, I listened to Lindsay's interview again.
Nice. That
And
was
one of the things,
167 for people's reference. If you want to have a listen to, yeah, I had him on. Yep.
yeah, yeah, Lindsay's a sharp guy.
Yeah.
I really like him. He's still involved in the company. And if I have my way, he'll be involved in the future. But basically, what happened is, and Lindsay kind of illustrated it, they tried to do an initial public offering back in, I think, 2018. And it cost them a lot of money to make that effort, and they withdrew it. So then they got into COVID, and of course, looking at the profit and loss statements, there was a large period of time where those guys had zero income, and that's going to kill anybody. And then, of course, you have the issues with the supply chain in the United States. There are additional tariffs for any goods made in China. So, and then the company got kind of in this situation where they, they just didn't have enough money to continue with everything they were doing, and 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 they also tried to go public again because they thought, okay, well, we think the market's healthier now. I think we can do it. So I believe they tried to do it a second time,
Mm.
and that ate up more money, and they were just in this vicious cycle where they were a 20-year-old startup company essentially trying to raise money. And Lindsay is really, really good apparently at raising money, because he's done a very, very good job, keeping it alive for as long as he did. But unfortunately, he was just overcome by events, and it's as it stands. They finally decided that, well, there's too much debt. We're never going to get out of it, so they went into administration. tried to restructure. So
Business strategy is an interesting thing. Eric asked about it, and there's a few other questions around it too. Obviously, the IPO, initial public offering, is basically where you take the public to be owned by shareholders, and anyone can
yeah,
buy shares at that point. Um, do you guys intend to keep the company privately owned,
yeah,
or is that
yeah.
sort of
So as it stands right now, we have zero intention of um, going public with it or bringing in additional shareholders or anything like that. We don't need additional money. We've got very, very deep pockets, and we're not going to have any problem purchasing product or maintaining standards or whatever. This is not going to be an issue. And talking about, if we kind of transition into what are we going to do differently, Ocean Guardian slash Shark Shield, I'm a reseller of their product. And for the last 4 years, I would say that I've probably had an Ocean Guardian device on my shelves for about 20 days over those 4 years because the devices would come in. I'd finally get my order. I'd call up my customers that had ordered them, and out they go. And literally, they're sitting there waiting to be picked up, and that's it. And they were never enough because they were doing just in time inventory because they didn't have the funding to be able to purchase in larger numbers. And because this is a manufactured product and it's fairly complex, there's a fairly long lead time to from purchase order to delivery. So it's several months. And then if you factor in shipping time and things like that, yeah, you can send something via air freight and it's going to cost you 20% more than what it would cost to ship it surface. So if it's coming from the Far East or from Australia or really if it's coming from anywhere in the world, it's going by ship. It's just going to take longer. But you know, so you really got to watch those margins closely, and you know, just make sure that you're staying on top of the finances. Now, our goal is, and this is one of the things when I was talking with my partner about this, I've got very strong feelings on this. If we are going to do this, we are going to order so many units initially that we will not run out of them in, let's say, 6 months. We're going to buy, let's just say 6 months worth. At the 3 month mark, we'll place our next order for the next 6 months so that we're always rolling with a large inventory on hand. And I know that in the past there were issues with warranty replacements, things like that. People having to wait a long period of time because there just wasn't enough product. That should not be an issue going forward. Well, let me rephrase that. It will not be an issue going forward because the way that I want to structure our procurement channel, we will have product on hand to satisfy warranty claims. New vendors coming up, or I'm sorry, new wholesalers or dealers coming up. I want to make sure that we've got enough for everybody. So, yeah,
I guess then we're jumping the gun a bit because there's a number of questions about products and warranty issues. The the one thing that comes to mind when you're starting to produce large volumes of something is, you run into the like iPhone 14, iPhone 13, iPhone 15, iPhone X, iPhone XS, you have various iterations of the product. Then the software becomes different. The like having warranty support for every version of the product becomes difficult. And then you also have a cutoff term because you guys might look at the Freedom 7, I think we're at now. You guys might quickly look at it and go, well, there are some things we would like to improve here in the Freedom 8. So you would need to have a cutoff date and like people would be interested in, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people hang out for that next iPhone rather than replacing it right now, or whatever. You might have the same issues with this, I'm imagining.
that could be possible, but to be honest with you, if you're waiting for the next iteration, it's kind of a bad move. Um,
Yeah.
just because there isn't one at this
Yep.
point. We're we've got our schematics. We've got our bill of materials, and there are some things like some of the boards may change, but those will be things that the user will never see. So I think that for the most part, at least for the next year, there won't be any perceptible change between the old Freedom 7s and the new Freedom 7s.
Okay, cool.
That's our goal is basically seamless. And something else that my partner and I both agreed on was we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a very good product here. There's a good channel that these guys have set up. Lindsay and Amanda did a good job of setting up all of their back end systems, all of the support systems, the procedures, the quality assurance. Working with the different engineers, and I see no reason to go in and change things until I actually know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah. And I guess we'll get to that when we start talking about the warranties and the plans you have for that.
Yeah. Sometimes the most intelligent thing to do is nothing.
Yeah.
And I think in this case, we are going to do nothing when it comes to changing the product or improving the product at this stage. Now, going forward, as we gain confidence with our knowledge and we identify issues, we'll go ahead and make those changes. And I know a lot of people have got, I saw a few suggestions. What about an auto time off? How can we keep it from shocking me? There are a lot of different things. Unfortunately, if I make those changes today, we have no idea what's going to happen. How's that going to behave?
So I do have a number of questions with regards to this. It might just be interesting to talk about it, and then at least we've had a conversation about it. But I kind of see exactly what you mean, because like when you are running a business and you're developing a product, really you need data, and you need it in a controlled environment, and then it becomes quite evident where the pain points are, and then you can prioritize them and work out what how to budget to fix them and all the rest of it. Because like a lot of people that are just consumers or buy stuff, they don't really understand how difficult the iterative process is, particularly when you've got a product that's being made at scale. Like, you've got to.
Not only is it being made at scale, but then it's being taken to 30 meters or 40 meters, by somebody. Some of the guys I dive with, we routinely dive as deep as 30 meters. And it's like, that's a long freaking way for a little electronic device to make it back and forth. And then I'm going to throw it on the deck of the boat because I drop it,
and shock my mates.
Well, trust me, I have laid it on the ladder for more than one of my friends. So,
Sergio says, when and where will they start taking orders?
So Sergio, rest assured that I don't want to take orders until we're close to being able to deliver product. What I don't want to do is take your money today and then make you wait for 6 months for us to deliver something. There's a good chance that you'll forget it's even coming. But no, I want to make sure that when we open the sales channel back up, we're ready for it. And so I would figure sometime after the first of the year is close to that. If we can get it open before Christmas, we will. And there are some products that we have in stock today. So we'll probably get the website turned back on here in the next week or so. In fact, by the time this airs, we will probably have a very solid status on when our first order is going to arrive. So what I'll say is you can check back to the Noob Spearo podcast. You can check the Ocean Guardian website, the Instagram page, Facebook pages, YouTube channel, all that. We're going to be putting updates out on all of those different social media platforms, and I'll keep Shrek and the Noob Spearo podcast informed as well.
Cool.
But so it's a big thing for our community.
Yeah.
There's I think it's one of the cooler products in our space.
I,
But
I was I
yeah,
was I was surprised, Ed. Like I put a post up on the Noob Spearo community on Facebook. I put a post up on the Noob Spearo Instagram, and I must have had at least 50 people, actively asking questions and involved in the conversation. So, like, you can tell that Shark Shield is quite well regarded, even though, like, there's some people, like, I'll read it out soon. There's a couple of guys that are on their sixth and seventh Shark Shields, and some people have had some bad experiences too, but they still seem to believe in the product. So, I mean, I think that says that there is a deep level of regard for it. People just kind of want it to work and work well,
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. I read one of the questions, and the person was saying, "Yeah, I've had in 7 years, I've had 6 units or something like
Yeah.
that." And I kind of flipped that for me personally. I flipped that on my head. In 10 years, I've owned 2 units, and both of them are still working. Um, Now that said, I'm not a commercial diver. I probably don't dive as much as many of your followers do. But I try to get out there as much as I can, and I don't baby my equipment. At the end of the day, because I own a shop, I get customers that come in and they got something that's all banged up. It looks mangled. And I'm like, well, how the hell did that happen? They're like, oh, I just took it out of the packaging. And like, yeah, whatever. You
Yeah.
towed it behind the boat at high speed. In fact, I had a guy bring in a lobster bag this
Yeah.
summer, and the bottom was ripped out of it, and it was just crushed. And he's like, well, oh, it didn't hold up. I'm like, well, it didn't hold up because you were running. It was being dragged behind 3 engines. There's no way that fell apart because you guys were using it normally. And he's like, oh no, it sure did. I'm like, look, I don't do this very often, but I told him to pound sand.
Yeah.
If he would have been honest with me, I'd have just replaced it.
There are some really shit customers, Ed. Like I've chatted with, I chat with spearing businesses all the time. Like there was this Finn guy I know, and when you start talking to people that make stuff, they will tell you about the shittest customers. Like guys standing on the deck of a boat, when it's traveling out for a bar, like a big bar crossing, and these fins, they're standing straight on them with their foot pockets, and they're angled. So the carbon fiber will eventually snap when you put too much pressure on it. And then they come into him and he knows exactly what it looks like because he looks at them all day long. And there's some of these guys like, I was just finning and it broke. And it's like, just like some people think that spearfishing businesses are like these huge multinational conglomerates. It's like most of them are mum and pop shops and people are making this stuff out of passion. It's not like you're going to, I'm going to start a spearfishing company because that's going to make me billions of dollars. It's like probably other things you could do.
One of my favorite jokes is the quickest way to become a millionaire in the spearfishing business is to start with 2 million. So, I mean, it's just, I think, so I'm going to get in a lot of trouble here. The cheapest people I've ever met in my life are scuba divers. And I don't understand it.
Oh.
They'll spend thousands and thousands of dollars, to go do a live aboard in the Galapagos and go look at sharks for a couple hours, or maybe they're going to travel to the Great Barrier Reef and go spearfishing. It's so funny, but divers oftentimes are wearing this 10-year-old wetsuit that's got holes in it, and they'll complain about the fact that they get cold in it. Well, no shit. Of course you're going to get cold in it. You can read through the thing, but it's kind of funny, and that's not all spear fishermen and not all divers, of course. Yeah. It always amazes me. So
I'm going to read out a bunch of questions here in a row, and then they're both about price. So, like Curtis says it simply. He says, "What is the price going to be? Is it the same product or different?" Yeah, and he's really looking forward to it. He's looking forward to the episode as well. And then Xander Lewis, 41 on Instagram, says that they're going to be keeping a similar price point. Colin wrote out a longer one, and I'll read it out because he says the biggest down. I think he's South African fella. He says the biggest downfall of Shark Shield, I believe, is the price of the units. Time after time, I would hear people say they are just too dear. Possibly to have success and sustainability, consider if the units were reduced in price. Basically, he thinks that, if you get the product out to more people, because if it's cheaper, you'll sell more and it'll be better for the business overall. Kamoria, though, had an opposite thing. I think it's a she. I'm not sure. She said, my 2 cents worth, I love the Shark Shield. They should increase the price to go along with inflation. Alternatively, they should manufacture them overseas to reduce costs. Also, are there bigger target markets than Australia? So
tell her to send me her resume. She's hired. So to jump on a couple of those questions. First of all, my goal is to get the unit into the stores in the most affordable manner that we can. And unfortunately, just simple economics dictate that we have to charge a certain amount in order to maintain profitability so that we can maintain longevity. I'll be very honest. We were talking about Ocean Guardian, and one of the pitfalls that they had fallen in, or one of the pits that they had fallen into, the tariffs increased the price by 25%. If I take away 25% of your income, that is going to drastically change the way that you live your life. And, that was one of the issues with goods being imported from China in the United States. So these units in the United States, profitability dropped by 25% overnight. And I will give Ocean Guardian credit. At the time, they did not increase their price to reflect that tariff increase. They basically ate it. And maybe if they would have adjusted their price and increased it, I wouldn't say that they'd still be around. I don't think that's true based on the other factors. But it would have made more financial sense for them. But again, my goal is to get it into the stores as inexpensively as I can. Is the price going to be the same? We're trying to figure that out right now.
Yep.
We've got our initial order in. The manufacturer and I have talked a little bit. There are a couple of items that we know have increased in price, and we're trying to determine, is it $5 or $10 that it's increased in price, or is it $50? And we're just not sure just yet. If it's $5 or $10, we're probably going to leave everything just like it is. If it's a small price increase, I shouldn't really use a dollar figure because it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if the price increase is nominal, we're going to leave things the way they are. And I hope that we can leave the pricing the same, even though the entire rest of the world has experienced just massive inflation. Now we'll see. Once we get everything scoped out for this order, we'll be able to actually set price. And for things like the service, we'll get into service agreements and warranty and everything in a bit. But again, I don't intend to change things unless we have to. So
yeah, cool. Justin says, I'm sure it will be covered, but will they be distributed again in Australia? And just to expand on Justin's question, where were Shark Shield products distributed to already? Where were they available to be purchased? Which parts of the world?
So I know they were in New Zealand. They're in Australia. I believe there were a couple of different places in the Middle East and Egypt. Let me think where else. I know that there were a couple of resellers in the Mediterranean, and then there were quite a few in the United States. I don't know. I think the majority of Ocean Guardian's business is in Australia because the company was based there. So there was a lot of focus on the Australian market. The United States, the adoption rate was much slower. But there's really two reasons for that. Number one, there wasn't as much focus and the team was smaller in the United States. So there wasn't as much marketing. And in Australia, you've got the rebate program. And unfortunately, in the United States, we don't have that. But we're gonna work on people and see what we can do.
Killshot Spear Guns, they've got another huge part of their family. It's depth charge charters. specializing in bringing freedive spearfishing charters in and around the reefs around Islamorada and the Florida Keys. Their guides and captains have multiple years of experience running boats, diving the Florida Keys, and have an impeccable safety record. If you are interested in doing a freediving course, upping your spearfishing game, and you're in that Florida area, I would 100% encourage you to check out Depth Charge Charters. You can do so at killshotspearguns.com and check out Depth Charge Charters. This podcast is brought to you by aqualite.com.au. This is the best solution, bar none, for staying hydrated in the ocean. If you're a Spearo, it's an absolute no-brainer. It's a game changer. If you're doing extended trips and the cramp starts to set in and the old body's telling you, hey, that's enough, just get hydrated and it will save you a whole heap of woe. Get Aqualite at aqualite.com.au. It's scientific rehydration that Spearos know and trust. I know because one works there, and that's why we've set up this discount code for you, 10% off when you use the code Noob Spearo at aqualite.com.au. Check it out. Australian-made hydration products tailored for Spearos and a whole bunch of other people that suffer from dehydration too. But check it out at aqualite.com.au. Use the code Noob Spearo to save 10%. Arriving on day one of the spearfishing trip of a lifetime and feeling underdone, unfit, and out of breath is incredibly underwhelming. Well, I've got a great solution for you today. Go to noobspearo.com/spear-ready and take part in a 50-day preparation program to get you into shape to make the most of a trip of a lifetime. This is a 50-day journey designed to get you in great shape to make the most of this trip. I consulted a bunch of legends to help me put together this program, including Adam Stern, Australian freediving legend, Jared Rosenberg from Earth and Ocean Fit, and Dr. Jaap Verbaas, author of Longer and Deeper, as well as a bunch of others to help me put together a 50-day program that will get you results. And I know it works. We've put a bunch of groups through this now, and people have seen huge improvements and landed on a charter or a trip and actually been able to tap into some of their best spearfishing fitness. Check it out at noobspearo.com/spear-ready. Jump in a 50-day program to make the most. If you are 2 months out from that trip of a lifetime, let me encourage you, get spear ready. Go to noobspearo.com/spear ready. I want to read you out an email. Actually, Patrick sent me this a little while ago. This is an aside. He says, Hi Shrek, first time caller, long time listener. Sorry, a little American joke that may not resonate. I had an idea for a super interesting show that would probably help us all in the States and maybe globally, where we're adjusting to a greater abundance of sharks while diving. I know for me personally, I dive in bad northeast US visibility, 6 feet usually, and this has changed the way we approach dives. It'd be great to hear from some veteran divers about this phenomenon, and he recommends a bunch of people. I was going to do another episode on, managing shark risks and thinking about that in the future, and that episode's sort of been flagged. So it seems like there is a greater awareness now around the risk of sharks. So I'm guessing the US is probably going to the demand for shark shield products there is only going to increase.
Oh, I definitely think it will. And I get people that ask me about it all the time. And really, it's kind of interesting. As a retailer, I could sell a shark shield any day of the week. I could sell it to a diver. Not all divers would be interested, but particularly the newer divers, or maybe I should say the newer, older divers. So somebody that's 30 years old, they've got a little bit of disposable income, and they've accepted the fact that someday they're going to go out the door feet first. They don't want it to be by a shark, and it's one of those things. I don't think I accepted my own mortality. Probably, well, hell, I don't know if I ever have. But we all believe we're immortal. But at the end of the day, as you get older and you get more experience, you realize, that stuff can't happen.
Yeah.
And particularly with a lot of the newer divers that I see, the older guys, they're very concerned about sharks. Oh, what do I do? How am I going to handle it? They really think about it a lot. And it's a big conversation topic. I see those guys buying them, pretty quick. That said, it's a good insurance policy. It's, you hope you never need it, but every time I go out these days in the Florida Keys, I used to spearfish 12 years ago, and I'd see a shark every other time I went. or maybe we'd see two sharks in one spot. It was pretty rare that we had a fish eat. Today, we dive very, very differently than we used to dive. I watch for my buddies' bands to relax on the guns because I can't hear the trigger from the surface. They're down 60 feet below me, so I see him shoot the gun. I know he either shot a fish or he missed, so I immediately dive. And what's nice about that is I'm right there as he's coming up to assist him if he needs help getting to the surface. But if he's hauling on a fish, I can take the fish away from him and help swim it to the surface. I'm fresh. I'm at the beginning of my dive. I can put a lot of heat on that thing. And I'm still right there to assist him if he has a problem. And if we see a shark come in, well, just drop down another 10 or 15 feet and harass him away if you can. Now, I wear a shark shield unit, so a lot of times, if I can get that fish within 20 feet of me, the shark begins to feel the shark shield, and it's so bizarre. They will swim up toward the fish. You can see that they're feeling the field, and then they will turn and they will swim back down to the bottom.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, okay, case closed. He's going to go away. They just get freaked out by it. Now it's not always that way. I've been harassed at the surface, but it all depends. Of course, there's also days when I forgot to turn the damn thing off, and it's dead, so I just throw it back in the boat. All right, well, I'm not gonna not go.
Yeah,
I'm still gonna go. But yeah, it's
Lindsay's his sort of anecdote was that it's like a seatbelt in a car. It's like, it might, it's a, I don't know. I think he used it as in that sort of context. Well, I mean, how do you think about Shark Shield? Have you got a
so
analog?
I've worn them for 10 years, and I believe in them. I've seen them work multiple times. And like I said, I look at it kind of like an insurance policy. I've got it. I don't know if a shark is going to come up behind me. And, if you think about it, when you're laying on the bottom doing an espedo, particularly when we dive, a lot of times we will go to a spot, we will anchor, and we will chum for 30 minutes before we even get in the water. Okay. I have no freaking clue what's down there because we haven't been in the water watching. And some days we're diving in pretty shitty viz. We've had a lot of days where we've had 15 foot of viz, and you're nervous. I'm nervous making that drop. But with the shark shield there, it gives me a little bit of peace of mind. I know that if a shark does come in, it's going to back off. As long as I haven't shot a fish at that particular point in time, and it just surprises me, it's probably not going to get real close. It might get within 10 feet of me, but he's going to go away. And I'm not watching behind me. I kind of do a crazy Ivan where I look over my shoulder to see if a mutton snapper's swimming up behind me. But, I'm not sitting there watching all different sides for a shark. The seatbelt analogy is good because if you wear it, it protects you from an accident or from further injury in an accident. If you strike something at any kind of speed, you're still going to get bumped and bruised. It's possible you're going to lose your fish, but it's very unlikely that you're actually going to have an attack, on your physical person. And, one of the things that Lindsay said was very true. And I've seen this with the sharks myself. They will push on that barrier and come in again and again and again sometimes. And typically it's like when you're trying to get a fish out of a hole. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll take my shark shield off my ankle and I'll just slide it down the float line or down the reel line to where the fish is. And it will sit right there on the shaft. Meanwhile, the fish is jammed inside of a coral head. Well, that'll keep those sharks 10 feet away.
Yeah.
But you'll see they will continue to circle that coral head for a little while. Now, sometimes they'll give up and go away, but usually not. But once you get that fish out, you just grab the shark shield and just swim on up. Once you have possession of that fish, they're probably not going to take it from you anyway.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that's just shark body language, you know, or hierarchy or whatever.
I,
So
I want to talk a little bit more about the product in a sec, about the Shark Shield technology as well. I did want to just close out that loop with regards to distribution in Australia. So, there could be people that are listening that are interested in restocking or stocking Shark Shield products
sure.
again. Is it going to be available in all of the same places that it was? And got have you had conversations with the people that previously retailed it? What is that sort of looking like?
So by the time this airs, I will have had a chance to talk with almost everybody.
Okay.
And I say me, my team will have had a chance to have talked to almost everybody. And here's kind of what I'm going to do. And this is going to sound, it might rub a couple people the wrong way, but I think I need to do it to protect the brand and to protect the the channel. And what I want to do is I want to take the companies, like here in the United States, we have several companies that are big resellers of Shark Shield. Spear Gods up in Tampa, Neptonics, Mako Spear Guns, Florida Free Divers, and there's a couple of others. And what I was going to do is reach out to those companies first and make sure that they are the first. I want to give them the first opportunity to order.
Yeah.
And the reason is they've always been very loyal customers of ours in the past. And I think that they're going to have the highest demand for those devices. So I want to make sure that they're stocked first and that we have enough stock sitting in our storeroom to be able to do replenishment so that they're not running out.
Yep.
And then we will start adding additional, we'll continue rolling out to our other dealers. And I'm going to do the same thing in Australia.
Okay.
Depending on the time of year, we will take our initial order and we're going to make sure that we've got more than enough. And part of the way that we're going to do that is I'm going to pick up that phone and talk to these guys and ask them, okay, how many do you think you're going to need? I can see historically how many they've sold in the past, but I want them to give me an idea of how many they think they need, and then we're probably going to take. Okay, well, they said 20, we're going to buy 40.
Yep.
So to make sure we've got that. Yeah. But I believe if people want right back in my opinion, I see no reason not to continue to sell to them. So, and to make them available.
Another couple of articles said Shark Shield is independently proved and tested. It's been backed by multiple peer-reviewed and published research papers. Originally developed by South African inventors Graham Charter, Sherman Ripley, and Norman Starkey at the turn of the millennium, the technology was licensed to Ocean Guardian South Australia's predecessor, Sea Change Technology, which created its own iterations and patents. I've talked with Andre from Terra Australis. They were one of the groups that did a lot of the testing on it back in the day. Some really neat videos on YouTube about it. But yeah, carrying on with questions. Eldarian says, does putting high-powered magnets on your wrist or ankles work the same as Shark Shield? And then I'll give you another related question. I currently use, I don't know if we can mention their brand here. It could be murky waters here. I currently use and would love to know the difference. People claim that I'm not even going to attract sharks by wearing them down south in New Zealand where the great whites are.
Okay, so I answered a question about this. And first of all, I don't think that a magnet is going to attract a shark. The fact that there's a 200-pound man in the water moving around, that may attract them. They're going to see you. They're going to feel you. They're going to know you're there. But I don't think that they're going to know those magnets are there until they're within about 10 centimeters of you. And that has to do, that has to do with the size of the field that those magnets put out. And they're not powered. And I'm not talking about any brand in particular, but magnets in general just don't have a very large electrical field around them. It's pretty small. Now, granted, you can definitely create a very large field, but you got to have some power to do it. And I don't see them being effective. In fact, there used to be a bunch of videos on YouTube where people tried different things out. And of course, the beauty of YouTube is you can make almost anything happen if you watch long enough.
Mm.
But I didn't see them. Number one, I don't think that they attract sharks. Them by themselves, no, I don't think so. If a shark gets close enough to it, it might investigate what it is, or it might be repelled by it. But it's got to be very, very close, like with the distance of a basketball, basically.
Yeah.
So,
there are
and
a
it
few
is.
there are a few related questions down when we talk about product design, because a lot of guys are like, why does it have such a long tail on it? And part of the reason that I understood from Lindsay's interview was that the difference between the power pack and then the anode on the end of the tail is what that space creates the size of the electrical field. And if there isn't enough gap between the central unit and that anode, then it can't generate a significantly large field. Is that the same stuff you're talking about?
Um, that's sort of correct. So I
Thanks
started.
for being polite to me and not making me sound like a
Well,
moron.
no, you're pretty damn close. Um, and to be honest with you, that's not a bad explanation. But to dive into it a little bit, I used to do a lot of work in the radio intercept business a long time ago. I was a cryptologist once upon a time, and so we listened to the radio is what I used to say.
Wind
But
talkers.
you had to know. Yeah, what's that?
Wind talkers.
Wind talkers. Yeah, exactly. So, but there's a good movie, by the way.
Yeah.
The the distance of the antenna or the leash, that's governed by the wavelength that we're trying to put out. And what they're trying to do is put out a specific waveform because and there's several other products that are similar to Shark Shield that have come and gone over the years, but they were ineffective. And it was because the waveform that they put out, it didn't have the correct frequency, it didn't have the correct amplitude, it wasn't modulated correctly. I'm not sure what it was. I haven't looked over all the research. I literally just got access to the research a few days ago. So, we couldn't look at that kind of intellectual property prior to the purchase. But the length of the antenna is governed by how big of a signal we want to put out and how much power we have. The longer the antenna, the bigger signal we can put out, the more radius we can protect you with, but we need more power in order to do it. And we're driving that thing with essentially about, a little bit more than 4 AA batteries.
Oh, wow.
Essentially, it's not a very big battery pack. It's pretty small. It puts out some juice, but it's we could go with a longer leash, for example, or a shorter leash. If we go with shorter, it's going to decrease the size of that field. If we made the leash longer, we'd have to power that battery up a little bit more, and it would wind up weighing more, be a little bit more cumbersome. And in fact, the boat units that we're working on, the boat and fish units, they've got a large battery similar to like what would go inside of a canister light. And most of our scuba divers that are in the tech world would know what a canister light is. It looks, I don't know, about the size of a tennis ball can. And, it's mostly batteries in there. So, and, but it's also powering a leash that I can't remember what the length is. I want to say the leash is like 6 meters long or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So it's putting out a big field. So
I love how you're bilingual, Ed. You just speak the metric language. It's amazing. You're an American that speaks metric. It's a very rare thing.
I do a horrible job of it.
No, you're pretty good. 6 meters. Oh my God. Yeah, no, it's excellent. Laura from the Spearo Diaries podcast. It's a up and coming podcast coming out of New Zealand about. I'm pretty sure it's just all spearfishing. I think there are 10 or 12 episodes in, but good stuff anyway. She asks, is there any research showing what effects on humans it may be having wearing them regularly?
No, I don't know of anything like that. And I think the amount of electrical charge that you're around is so small. Um, you know, I think about the worst thing you're going to get is a blister on your ankle from the Velcro strap if you don't wear socks. But yeah, I really don't. I don't believe any research has ever been done about it. But it's a hell of a lot safer than like living underneath of the high tension power lines. So,
Well,
but
they're supposed to have decent exclusion zones on them now, and then
yeah.
I mean, unless you want to put your house in a Faraday cage, I guess, or something like that.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, when I was a kid, we lived right down the. Well, I didn't live there. One of my relatives lived near, relatively near a high tension line. They were about a half mile away from it. And one day we were about 10 years old. And they gave us some fluorescent light tubes and told us to go play around underneath the high tension lines.
Wow.
And the fluorescent tubes would light up, as you're walking around under,
Yeah.
from the electrical discharge. And I was like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Of course, 10 minutes later, we're playing Luke Skywalker, and smashing them apart. And, you know,
Those were the days, eh? No safety glasses,
you know,
just glass
yeah,
everywhere in your skin. Excellent.
exactly. Yeah. My parents used to tell me to go play in traffic. So, it's gotta be tough.
And look how he turned out. It's
Yeah.
always,
Right.
everyone who's listened for a while has probably heard my terrible kill shot spear guns ads. Have you had a listen? Did you enjoy them?
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're hilarious. So, yep.
Uh, we'll talk a bit more about kill shot at the back end if we can. So interesting question from Laura there. So no research showing that.
No.
Let's move into some of the warranty questions. This is really a lot of the meat and potatoes of the questions I was getting. A lot of people that have bought shark shields in the past, like David says, I've had 6 shark shields in the last 7 years. In fact, when Ocean Guardian went under, I had just sent them 2 of my shark shields back to them because they had failed. I use them because they work. The cost is an issue, but units failing or dying is the biggest heartache. I've always been concerned that the continual switching on and off with moving from one spot to the next when spearing is the issue with the Freedom 7.
And I know somebody else made a comment about possibly some kind of an auto off,
Mm,
so that you're not turning it on and off constantly.
mm,
So first of all, let's address the warranty issue, and then I'll come back to the switch real quick. So it's an electrical device. It's going in the water. Depending on how much you're using it, it's going to get used a lot, or maybe it's not going to get used very much at all. It's really one of those things. It's very dependent on you. From time to time, there have been some batches in the past. I know that had some issues, and I think it's unlikely that you got like 6 bad units or something like that. My guess is that you probably dived quite a bit, and you're putting them through their paces. And unfortunately, it is an electrical device, and it's going in a very harsh environment. Also, they use lithium batteries. Lithium does not like high heat. So if you're keeping it in your car, it is not going to be happy about that. It doesn't like shock and vibration. And I don't know a boat out there that you're not occasionally pounding it, or the boat itself isn't banging around a little bit.
mm,
So shock and vibration are terrible for it. Um, One of the things that we've always struggled with was kind of refurbing the units, refurbishing them, and swapping out faulty parts. And that's one of the things that we're going to challenge the engineers with, to make them a little bit more serviceable, so that we can replace parts and swap them out more easily. And then, to be honest, we just got to stay on top of the warranty. For those of you guys that are solid spearfishermen, we were talking about doing some kind of a service program where, for a fee, much like Ocean Guardian had done in the past, they would extend the warranty out for an extra $99. They would extend it out for an extra 2 years, I believe. We're looking at doing something very, very similar to that. We're not looking to kill that off. At the end of the day, I want you guys wearing them. If you wear them, I think it'll protect you. And I think you're going to be just a little bit safer out there than you are today. So, the goal is to keep you guys wearing them. But yeah, I don't have solid answers as to why yours failed. I just don't know. But we should be, those units actually should be sitting in the warehouse in Sydney.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Tim will get to them here before long, but I think timing just sucked for you, unfortunately. And
let me read out a few more related questions, and then because I think we'll tick off some more things. Dewey David on Instagram says, will they honour the warranty from past units? I got caught up in the mess with my failed unit. I had returned it and they sent an email saying it was going to be replaced with a new unit. A few weeks later, I was at the dive shop and they were talking about the business going into receivership. I had no contact at all with them after trying to even get my failed unit, my property back. I've been dealing with Olga from a mediation process, but I'm getting nothing back, not a cent. I had paid for the extra 3-year warranty. This would have been my 5th replacement unit as they kept failing at the antenna with the unit still working. I'd be happy with a new unit as long as it works and lasts longer than a few months like a few did. Anyway, and then I'll just keep going. I'll reel out a few and then you might just like to address them all in a few things. Curtis says, what will their warranty policy look like? Will they fix it if it breaks through regular use at no cost? I know you may not know the answers yet, but it will be interesting to hear their thoughts. And then, Austin also says, will they honour the original warranty? Would be understandable not to, I guess, but would be useful to know if they plan to or not. And then, we'll get into some, I guess that there's some more related questions. It's more, I've sort of grouped them into product design though. Well, Conrad says, early in the year, I brought a shark shield to strap on his son Jackson when they go out diving. It didn't work for long, so I sent it back to Ocean Guardian and they said they would replace it. I've attached the email. Not sure there's anything the new crew can do, but thought I'd give it a crack. Michael says, is there any process to repairing units? I've got a 1-year-old unit bought from Australia but based in South Africa now. The rep from South Africa said they can't do anything about it. It's about 1,000 Australian dollars to replace a new unit here. Jay says, really need to address the reliability and warranty issues. There must be a way for them to last longer. So, lots and lots of questions there with people that are understandably frustrated with some of the issues that they've had in the past. Have at it.
Well, I'm operating in a position of ignorance, which is tough. I don't know how many units are failing. My belief is it's actually a very small number. Now, if I own 2 units and both those units fail, to me that's a big number. But there's thousands of these things out there, and it was kind of funny when I was talking with the dive shops. I'm answering this kind of roundabout way.
No worries.
But I was talking with a couple of the dive shops here in the United States, and one of the owners said, "Oh, what are we going to do about these warranty issues? I got so many of them sitting here." And I asked him, I was like, "Well, how many do you have?" And he said, "Well, I got 3." I'm like, "Well, crap, dude, you sell 30 a month. 3 is not a lot.
Yeah.
That's per month. Yes, that's a lot, but he's selling 300 a year, 200 a year. So, in the grand scheme of things, having 3 come back isn't a big deal. Now, to those individual users, it's a big deal. And I totally understand that. And I'm not trying to make excuses, but as far as the warranty goes and supporting the old warranty or respecting it, we intend to do what we can for the customers. And I don't want to make any promises at this point. To be honest with you, if we get out there and we find out that the last batch of Freedom 7s basically shit the bed, and there's 500 units out there that are faulty, I don't know that we can do something with that. But I don't think that's the case. My guess is it's a small percentage, and we will try to work with all of the customers out there to make it right. Like I said earlier, my goal is to have everybody out there wearing them that wants one. So part of that is keeping you guys happy by continuing to support the product and trying to make it as reliable as possible. And like I've said a couple of times, you got an electronic device that's going into a very harsh environment, and then we as spear fishermen don't always treat things nicely. So, but I would say that we're doing our best, but we'll definitely take a look at the quality assurance issues. I know from the last batch there was nothing outstanding.
Okay.
There was, it was something I talked with the engineer about because I was curious. Are we going to get confronted with a lot of warranty issues? He said, no, everything was within spec. There was.
I would hope that the sample that I have in the community is overrepresentative because, but this tells everyone the same story. Like, a customer that's had a problem with an expensive product, they were a big fan to begin with. And then when they get burned or they even, and obviously a lot of people have with the company going into liquidation, they are going to be some of the most vocal and almost justified in their anger people. Do you know what I mean? I can see where they're coming from. But I can also see, like, you guys are just coming into this. You bought the company. It's like almost cleaning up, another person's mess. Like which never feels good either. And honestly, like I'm hoping that, like I said, the sample size that we have here is overrepresented. But I would say that they really want their stuff fixed, which is why they are involved in the conversation.
Well, and that tells me that they believe that the product works. Which is important. I think anybody that's dove, any spear fisherman that's actually watched this thing turn a shark away, gets it. And that was one of the big sellers for me. We had a deal a few years ago. We pulled up onto a wreck. It's a very, very well-known public wreck here in the Florida Keys. It's called the Eagle. And we pulled up there one day. It's 110 feet of water. There's always fish on it. Some days it's good. Some days, it's not. But there's almost always sharks on it. Some days there's 2. Some days there's 10. And it's almost always bull shark. So we show up, and there are flag yellowtail, which are 5-pound, 6-pound yellowtail, just swimming all over the place. And we had watched one of the other charter boats leave the area and free up one of the mooring balls on the wreck. So anyway, we come over, we see all these yellowtail in the water. There's other fish underneath of it. We think maybe it's wahoo, but we're not sure. So my 2 dive buddies immediately grab all their gear and jump in. The first one in is Luke. Luke hit the water, and no sooner than the white water around him cleared than a bull shark hit his fins.
Yep.
And I watched it come at him, and it damn near knocked him over. And anyway, Steve jumped in pretty quickly after that, and there's power in numbers, and we know that. So those 2 guys immediately got in the water, and I'm standing there grabbing my shark shield. And meanwhile, he's being buzzed by, there were 3 or 4 sharks that were right up on the surface, going after both of those guys. And they were pushing them away with their spear guns. And I've already dropped the ladder on the boat, but they can't get back in. They cannot turn away from these animals. They're too fast. They're too hot. And they were all over them. So I took the shark shield, tied it to the stern line, and tossed it in right next to the ladder. And that gave them the room to get away from it. And watching those sharks move away from them in that situation, both of those guys used to give me crap about, being a sissy and everything else. Oh, you're just afraid of sharks. Yeah, well, they were believers that day. So, and both of them have credited me with the fact that if I wouldn't have done that, things may not have turned out quite that well. So, because those animals were hopped up. So,
well, that's one people say, like, when the sharks have their blood up too, how effective is the unit in disrupting them? Because the ampullae of Lorenzini really is only one of their sensory apparatus, and they have others. And when they are fueled, like bull sharks are famous for it, they're just fueled with testosterone, and they're dumb as shit. Like sometimes they just smash everything when they're in a frenzy. So it's pretty cool that it was still effective even in that situation.
Yeah, but we had another incident that was similar on the very same reef or wreck a couple of years earlier, and I was out with 2 guys. I'd never spearfished with them before, and one of the guys was holding on to the back of the boat. We had, this was an epic day, 200 foot of viz. you can see from the surface, you can see the entire wreck. The wreck is 230 feet long, and it's 110 feet below us. I mean, you could see forever that day. And yeah, every now and then I'd see a big brown shadow go by, and I dove on the wreck a couple of times. There were a couple of big grouper, but I couldn't get a shot at them that I thought I'd be able to get them off the wreck, and without it being a mess. And because I'd never dove with these guys before, I was very reluctant to shoot a fish in 80 feet of water that's gonna get rocked up in the wreck. So I didn't shoot anything. So I'm on the surface, and one of the guys is holding on to the back of the boat, and he shoots a Jack Crevalle, which you guys have got Jack Crevalle over there, don't you?
Nah, it's a fairly
Okay.
a fairly shit fish in your guys' opinion, though, isn't it?
Oh, well, yeah, we call them canal tuna because they're strong as hell.
Yeah.
But yeah, you use them to fertilize your flower bed. You don't eat them.
Yeah, what do we call them here?
Anyway, what's that?
They're a Karangaday. They're like a trevally looking thing, but they are.
Yeah,
they call them a black-tailed trevally or something. I think I'm not sure if we call it what. Nah, we don't have them here. We have some similar looking fish, but anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, this guy shoots this fish. It's probably 30, 35 pounds. It's a big one. And he's holding on to the ladder of the dive. And up off the bottom come 4 bull sharks after that thing. Because the second they get hit, they start grunting.
Yeah.
So he's ooh, 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 ooh. And those sharks were just, man, they were on him like white on rice.
Yeah.
That fish probably made like 2 really tight circles and then just got demolished.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I'm in the water with the other guy. And we're at this point, we're probably 35 feet from the boat. And I'm watching a National Geographic episode unfold in front of me. And I'm like, I call him over and I'm like, hey, come here, get over here. And, if we're together, we can fend them off, circle the wagon, so to speak.
More biomass.
And I'm like, look, exactly. So let's just swim away. I told him, let's just swim away from the boat. Let's get as far away from these guys as we can. And every single one of those bull sharks, as soon as they were done and they realized there was no more food there, they all swam over to us. And of course, at this point, I've got the Shark Shield unit on. So they swim over. They're 20 feet away. They kind of cruised underneath of us at about 15 feet. And then down they went down toward the bottom, never to be seen again. And so both of those guys got on the boat. And I'm still in the water. And I'm like, hey, what are you guys doing? I thought we were going to spearfish here. there's no way in hell I'm going to spearfish, but I couldn't let them know that. So.
That's a good stare. I like that. I had some more questions. David and another guy, RHGZ on Instagram, wanted to identify the issue. RHGZ says, will they look into making these units more reliable? For the price, I was not impressed with the failures of the switch. And David also, he brought up, like if you're moving, does the unit like the constant on-off when you're moving between spots?
Okay, so a couple of things. Let's talk about the switch real quick. The switch, it's a red button dial, basically. It's a dial, and underneath that dial is a little magnet. So there's a little rare earth magnet that's nickel plated and everything. And what it does is when you turn it, there's a reed switch inside of the unit that's ferrous, and it follows that magnet. Okay, so basically you're just moving it, just like a psychic, will move, stuff on the table. They're typically doing it with, some kind of, sleight of hand bullshit. Well, we're using magic too. So we're just using that magnet to move that reed switch. So from an intrusion perspective, there should never be any issue with any kind of water intrusion through that switch because there's no mechanical opening into the unit. The switch itself is screwed in, but there's a plastic cap that's extruded, through the top or molded through the top that you're actually screwing into, so that it doesn't penetrate the case or anything. From time to time, the reed switch, or I'm sorry, not the reed switch, but the magnet will corrode, and then it won't work properly. What will happen is once you get that corrosion, the magnet is no longer effective in grabbing that reed switch and turning it on, turning it off. That's a very simple issue. You usually, if you go to your local dive shop, many dive shops will have those reed switches or those magnetic switches on hand. Now, as far as some kind of a on-off, like an auto on-off, the issue there is that most of your auto, like your dive computer, it hits the water and it turns on automatically. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but when you get out of the water, it doesn't automatically turn off.
Yeah.
Now, potentially, we could put some kind of a pressure indicator on it or something like that. But the issue is the pressure gradient is so small between, say, 1 meter and the surface. It's really hard to tell whether you're in the water or not. And if you've got a day where maybe there's a lot of thunderstorms in the area and you've got a lot of barometric pressure, maybe there's a high pressure system in the area. Yeah. Maybe there's so much barometric pressure that the damn thing won't turn off anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and auto. Sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear all the sirens going by, but there's probably some crack addict outside of my hotel that's getting arrested. So,
are you in San Francisco? Are you?
No, I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee today.
Oh, wow!
But yeah, so I'm driving across country. So, but anyway, so the auto switch, I don't know that we could make something like that work.
Just hearing you talk, by doing this, by introducing an auto on-off switch, didn't really matter what mechanism you use. It's another layer of complexity, and it's also another point of failure.
Yeah, it is. And
you're just changing one point of failure for another.
Yeah, and the other issue too is when you're getting in and out of the boat, and I've been guilty of this a number of times. I'll get out of the boat. I'll be sitting on the transom. Maybe we're getting ready to move from spot to spot, and I've got my shark shield on, and it's sitting in the water. Well, it's making contact with the ladder or the platform, which is aluminum. And my dive buddy swims up and grabs a hold of the ladder, and he's like, "Hey, I think there's something wrong with the engine. I'm getting shocked." It's like, nah, there's nothing wrong with the engine, buddy. So it's my shark shield. Or if I want to have fun with them, what I'll do is I'll turn it on when we're all sitting in the boat and we're soaking wet, and I'll lay it across their feet and just leave it on. So.
Yeehaw! Welcome to Depth Charge Charters. It's not just functional and simple spear guns that you can rely on from Killshot. It's Depth Charge Charters as well, part of the Killshot family. These guys go out of their way to ensure you have a great time on the water. They focus in and around freedive spearfishing, but you can go lobster fishing, line diving on a freediving. You can do freediving classes and lessons, even up your spearing game with legendary instructors. Check it out at KillshotSpearguns.com, based out of Isla Morada in the Florida Keys.
Massive thanks to today's sponsor, Dog and Gun Coffee. It's bloody good coffee, ready for adventure. They use specialty grade beans and roasted fresh in Brisbane by a small Aussie team. Their most popular product, and this is one that I love myself, are the preloaded drip filters, which allow you to have cafe quality coffee anywhere. And I use them out on my Stratty spearfishing adventures. It is legit cafe quality coffee that you can make with simple boiling water. Add your own milk and sugar. Well, that's what I do anyway. Their owners, Sean and Rach, are keen hunters in and out of the water and want to encourage more people to get outdoors. That's pretty much the vision of Dog and Gun Coffee. Check it out at dogandguncoffee.com.au. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10%. Can't get better than that. Go to dogandguncoffee.com.au. Again, hey, I like the Sandbar Dark Roast as well. Check that out at Dog and Gun Coffee.
Spear Ready is a 50-day training program designed to get you in shape to make the most of your spearfishing. It's a 50-day cross-training program designed to put you in shape and not feel like you don't have any breath hold when you arrive on your trip. If you can go spearfishing during the week during this program, you can even subtract something from the workout. I can guarantee that no other prep program is saying that. Check it out at noobspearo.com/spearready. There are always frothers training and trying to prepare and get in shape. It's a great way to stay motivated and do it together with our private Facebook group. Check it out again, noobspearo.com/spearready.
So with that switch, what you're sort of saying is it's fairly robust because it's not an open unit to the marine environment. And if it fails, it's relatively easy to fix.
Yes, it is. It literally, it's one Phillips head screw. You just back that screw out, you pull that little red piece off, and you put on a new one. And like in my shop, they had so I don't remember, back in like 2017, Ocean Guardian had an issue where a bunch, they just got some bad magnets. And I called up the distributor, who at the time was Amanda, and I said, well, I want a couple. And she's like, well, how many do you want? I said, well, give me 10. That way, no matter what, no matter who comes in, and I think out of that 10, I probably still have 5. So yeah, I mean, it's not like I had a whole bunch of them come in, but I'm in a tourist area. So it was very conceivable that I would have somebody from the Tampa Bay area or San Francisco, like California or something like that, come by with their unit while they're in town, and it would be, failing to function because they couldn't turn it on or turn it off. So, and
so do you envision, some of these smaller, like simple fixes of the unit? Do you envision equipping dive stores to be able to fix these units on site?
100%, something like that. Every dive shop out there was authorized to make that change. One of the problems, though, with some of the shops, there is a very large company here in the United States. They got multiple locations. They sell a lot of dive gear. They sell a lot of spearfishing gear, and I get a lot of business from them. And I get it because they fold T-shirts very, very well. So, it's almost all it's other merchandise. They don't have anybody on staff that's an expert. So
you need a gear or a rigging person really to watch the video to make these small retrofits or fixes.
Yeah.
But like technician.
Most of this stuff, exactly. Most of this stuff is very, very simple.
Yeah.
Literally, it's one screw. You pull the unit off. You throw the old switch off. You put the new one on. You put the screw back in place.
Yeah, right.
Stuff like that is very simple, but it requires a salesperson on that floor to know that there is a fix, or to be smart enough to ask the question. Somebody that does know.
This is part of the problem too. Like, like I walk into a dive store now, some of them may carry 3,000-4,000 product lines. You know what I mean? Like individual products. And then the salesperson, it really takes quite a long while to accumulate the knowledge to be able to understand how everything works, what the common failures are, what the common fixes are. And I guess Shark Shield is just another product in an already huge range of gear.
Yeah.
And retail salespeople too that some of these dive stores employ, they're not being paid a lot. Some of them are sort of fly by night. They're in for 6 months, then they burn out because retail is such a rugged work environment anyway, and it's really not that well paid. I mean, that's probably a limitation, I guess, some dive stores have.
Well, it absolutely is, and that was one of the things that we identified very early on when we were going through the acquisition process. Shark Shield's actually done a very good job of putting information out on YouTube and building their FAQ out. Have you ever heard the phrase RTFM?
No. Return to.
It stands. Read the fucking manual. So
no one reads the manual, Ed. No one reads the fucking manual. Like
I know that.
At best,
Well,
people search on YouTube for a quick troubleshoot guide. I hate reading IKEA manuals, and yet without reading it, you're never going to fucking put the thing together properly.
oh,
So
yeah, no
I
kidding.
just learned never to go there. Buy pre-assembled
Yeah.
stuff or yeah.
So, the guys in the dive shop should be reading the manuals or should be up to speed. And like one of the things that we were talking about doing for Ocean Guardian / Shark Shield is making sure that each one of the products has an educational video for the sales team. What are the key features of this product that the end user will need to know in order to make an educated purchase? And I've always looked at my job as a salesman. I'm not trying to sell you a product. I'm trying to educate you about the different options, and then you can make the selection on what you want. But make sure that they've got those tools, and also put the same tools out there for our consumers. Because at the end of the day, if my Shark Shield unit doesn't work and I don't think that I can get help from my dive shop, or even if I think I can, I'm going to go to YouTube or somewhere first to see if there's some kind of a solution and, educate myself. You obviously you own a car. If there's suddenly this weird noise, it's going whoomp, 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 whoomp as you're going down the road, that's a pretty good clue that you got a flat tire. But you know what to do to fix a flat tire,
Yeah.
and if you don't know, you can get on YouTube and find out. There's probably 30 guys out there ready to fix that tire.
Yeah.
So, or show you how. So,
yeah.
And then there's 5,000 people that are going to tell you they've done it wrong.
Yeah.
So,
oh, I love that in the comment section. Some poor bugger takes the time to put together a decent video guide about how to, replace a washer in your dryer or something or whatever. And you're on it, and then there's just people slaying them in the comments, and it's like, well, where's your video, Dick?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Nah, awesome.
That's kind of like I get this a lot from people about Shark Shield. They're like, well, Shark Shield scares off fish. Shark Shield attracts sharks. Okay, how many Shark Shield units do you use or do you own?
Yeah.
How many times have you ever dove with one?
Yeah.
Have you actually seen it frighten a fish away?
Yeah.
I figure if you throw it at a fish, that will frighten it away.
This is part of the problem too, though. See, so what happens is, like, a guy who was like a really wicked Spearo back in his day, like very well regarded, highly respected. A new innovation comes along, and that guy hears something from someone else anecdotally. None of them have used the unit, but he's all of a sudden like, no. If you've got that on, then you'll attract sharks, and then the rest of us will get eaten, but you won't. And then it's and the problem is, like, when these really well regarded, really well respected people say these things, is because they have such a great reputation, we tend to take what they say at face value. And
sure.
I've watched a lot of innovation in the spearing space get pissed on, and I think it's just quite disappointing at times. Like the Hex suit was another example. Like, I thought that was pretty cool application for the marine environment. And even if whether you wanted it or not, at least have the conversation and learn about it. It was pretty cool. I thought I was disappointed when that disappeared, and disappeared because I think that anyway there was other issues there. It wasn't the technology. It was just
it was expensive. That was one of the problems. So
it was expensive, and the parent company wouldn't renew the patent for one
I didn't know
manufacturer. Yeah, which they had exclusivity to use that technology in a marine application, and then the owners wouldn't renew that specific patent. So I was a bit disappointed about that. But anyway, Jeff from South Africa says, hi. A lot of guys in South Africa wear a shark shield when spearing or diving for crays. I usually hang my shark shield via a small float to sit above me when cray diving, as I feel that the electrical impulse would be ineffective if the antenna is sitting on the ocean floor when you are looking under ledges. Could you ask if antenna is effective in this situation, please?
So, okay, if it's imagine the electrical field as a what is it? kind of like a watermelon. It's kind of you've got kind of a long ovalish shape that's cylindrical.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically equal on all sides. But it's going to be based on how long that antenna is, and in this case, it's what is that thing, a meter long?
Yeah.
Is it a meter and a half? I don't remember. It's pretty long. But anyway,
I thought it was 1.2. It's somewhere around there anyway.
Yeah, something like that. And I can't remember. I know it's longer than I thought it would be when I first got one. But these days I don't even notice it. But basically, so let's take a look at that watermelon. If you take that watermelon and cut it in half because the unit is now laying on the bottom, you're still protected above you. Obviously, the sharks, unless it's a sand shark, he's not coming through the bottom to get you. But sharks they are ambush predators. They do hang out on the edge of visibility, and when you're not looking at them, they'll creep up behind you. So the fact that it's on your ankle, I think, is actually the safest place for it to be. That said, there have been applications, like I was talking earlier about sending it down my reel line to a grouper that's sitting inside of a hole that we've just shot to try to keep the sharks away from the coral head and to protect the different divers that are going down. I've got one shark shield and I got three. There's three of us in the water. The sharks aren't going to attack us in the water column. But if we're up to our neck in that coral head trying to get that damn fish out, one of them might get inquisitive and come over and bite us. So we just send the shark shield unit down on the bottom, and then it's right next to the diver. So he should be protected by the electrical field. So that's our theory anyway.
So you think if you were diving like 30 feet of water, chasing a lobster, you're sort of buried up to your waist, getting right stuck into these caves, you would be more likely to still leave it on your ankle.
100%, yeah. And particularly if I'm in 30 feet of water, remember the field doesn't extend out, 30 feet or 10 meters, from the tip of that thing. It goes out, what is it, 3 to 5 meters is basically what the shark can feel. And they're not really going to be repulsed by it until they're within 2 to 3 meters, typically. And then it's going to overwhelm them, most of them. But I would prefer to have it on me personally. So
Tom asked a question that you might have an opinion on. He says, what has been the main cause of shark shields failing or dying? What is going to be done about it engineering wise? We talked about the switch. I had some other questions here about the long tail in a sec. But yeah, what are some other failures that you guys are aware of?
I know that the batteries will die from time to time. It's a lithium battery. Water intrusion into the unit is always a huge issue. It's basically chemically welded together. The unit is. So, but if it gets dropped hard enough, something could fracture or break or whatever. Or it is possible that there's a manufacturer's defect, and we just have a weak weld on the plastic, and it's not glued together properly. That is possible, but typically those things are going to be exposed pretty. Something like a manufacturer's defect, that's going to be exposed pretty quickly. It's kind of rare. I always say with electronic devices, they always ask you if you want the extended warranty in the store when you're buying a toaster. And I always laugh and I said, no, it's either going to work when I get home or it's not. Otherwise it's going to make toast for the next 2 years. So, and by then your service agreement's going to be up anyway. And, I won't be able to throw it into the tub when my wife's in it. So
Sven says, this is super exciting that you've bought the company. He finds there's a stigma around diving with people who wear them. And he's saying, is there maybe a rebrand on the cards? Obviously, like with new owners, like sometimes, you would almost want to disassociate maybe from some of the older perceptions of it because and have a differentiation there. Is there any plans to do that?
So
Oh, and
Yes and no.
he also says you guys are legends for doing something to help with safety in the sport. So yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I think it's an important product. I wish that there wasn't a stigma around them. Remember, I've been called a pussy for the better part of 10 years because I wear one, by a bunch of my friends. And at the end of the day, I don't care. I'm a big boy. I don't go home and cry myself to sleep because somebody called me names or somebody said I'm afraid of sharks. I could care less. I'm very comfortable with what I'm doing, and when I put more fish in the boat than they do, um, you know, the name calling goes away and the frustration begins. But as let's see, you asked about the branding. Okay, I don't like the name Ocean Guardian. I understand why they went to the name Ocean Guardian, and my partner and I talked about this. The product is a shark shield, essentially. Yep. That's a catchy name. That's what everybody calls the damn thing. Nobody calls it an Ocean Guardian.
Or Freedom 7.
I call it, or a Freedom 7. I mean, what the hell's a Freedom?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. I don't know. It's you can call it whatever you want, but at the end of the day, it's a shark shield, and we're going to go back to that name. And our new branding that's going to come out on our new packaging and everything, our logos and everything else, we're going to really focus on that shark shield name.
Yeah.
It's widely respected. Everybody knows what it is. And, somebody that's a casual observer or somebody that's just getting into the sport may have heard of Shark Shield.
Yeah.
It's very unlikely that they know that it's a Surf 7. Or a Freedom Plus or whatever.
Yeah.
They just don't know, what the units are.
Could you make it like Shark Shield, the Spearo 8, or the Surfer 8? You know what I mean? That way
Yes.
you could still have the application in the name, but that it's much more overt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a little bit more intuitive. When you're looking at the product. Yeah, I agree 100%. Now, we've been noodling around different ideas. What are we going to call this? What are we going to call that? We're probably going to keep, just for clarity, that like the stock number will probably be the Freedom 7 for the Shark Shield, because that's what everybody knows it as. They probably already have it in their system as that.
Yeah.
And they can continue to refer to it as that. But the branding on the box, it will probably be the Shark Shield dive, free dive or dive unit or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we've got the Shark Shield scuba unit. We have the Shark Shield surf units.
Yep.
And then when we get into the barrier products, which we're going to continue to roll out, it will be the Shark Shield fish unit, the Shark Shield boat unit. The barrier unit will probably be beach barrier or something like that. We got to think about it a little bit. We'll come up with something.
When you're trying to appeal to all these trendy governments, you do have to have some friendly eco corporate language to speak to them, because for the people that living in their $2.5 million apartments in Bondi, they really want to hear some sexed up eco friendly language and probably don't want to hear Shark Shield. But I don't know. To me, even I would say Shark Shield. It's friendly on them and it protects people. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we'll make one that's made out of bamboo because it's more sustainable. So I don't know what the longevity of it will be, but
the bamboo 7.
Maybe it'll just be it'll be a stick that you just poke the shark away from, because that's all you got to do. You just got to redirect them. I've heard that many times. So
yeah. There's a few shark influencers that'll tell us all about it. There's 3 questions here, or 4 actually. They're all about the long tail. Matthew says, as soon as a unit as effective as Shark Shield can be made without the cumbersome tail, it would fly off the shelves. Mark says, thanks for letting us know. I would ask for the best tips for overcoming the very common problem of getting the 2-meter Freedom 7 cable wrapped around your fins and or float line. I find it a constant hassle. Can they design a cableless version of the Freedom 8? Thanks again. Love the podcast. Sergio says, Any improvements on the bulk antenna? And then Real Raphael on Instagram says, have they considered a redesign? Tired of getting shocked by my buddy's shield.
Okay, a couple of things there. The tail that's on it right now is the antenna. That's what makes the device effective, and that's what puts out the electrical field that's so long or so big. And it is a big field compared to all the other products that are on the market. You compare a 5 meter radius to something roughly the size of a basketball. I think we've got them beaten pretty soundly as far as effectiveness goes. But there's some things that can be done to make the tail a little bit more user friendly. I don't know that we'll be able to get away without or get away from shocking you. It has happened to me many, many times. I'm an Espeto guy. I drop down 15 meters, I look on the bottom, and then my shark shield drops on my back. And what I do is I kick my leg to the side while I'm trying to lay still and relax. I'm being shocked, and it eventually falls off my back, and then it's one of those things. It's uncomfortable, but it doesn't ruin my breath hold or anything. Yeah. What it does is it makes me move a little bit more, so I expend a little bit more energy, a little bit more oxygen. That said, where it really sucks is when I'm going down, and because it's negatively buoyant, I get to the bottom and I'm kind of slow dropping, and all of a sudden it comes and it shocks me right in the balls. That really sucks. So, and if you do it long enough, it'll happen to you sooner or later. Unfortunately,
I've seen a few workarounds. A couple of guys drill holes in their fins, and then you can zip tie it to the rail. And another guy, a friend of mine, he actually just Seeker flexed it right down the inside or the outside rail of one of his blades. And obviously it's going to affect the effectiveness of the blade because you don't get that nice parabolic curve or whatever. But the zip ties idea is maybe better because then it would help to at least hold it straight to a point. You know what I mean? What do you think about those things?
So if I was going to attach it to my fin, I think the idea there would be to attach it approximately where the tendon ends, because there's less flex halfway down the fin as opposed to all the way at the end of the fin. Yeah. Your fin is gonna move 50 centimeters either direction.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not 50 centimeters, probably 40 centimeters either direction.
Yeah.
As it's flexing back and forth. But if you were to zip tie it maybe in the middle, where that tendon ends, that might work pretty well. I don't know. It's one of those things. Carbon fiber does a wonderful job of conducting electricity. And I'm always kind of kicking my foot off to the side because I'll feel it shocking me through the boot. And what's happening is my fins are held on by two stainless steel screws. So the carbon fiber is carrying that charge to those two screws, and then it's shocking the bottom of my foot. But it's so minor, it's a little irritating. Now, the float line issue, that's a total pain in the ass. There's no two ways about it. It is a pain. I've dealt with it many, many times. But typically, the one thing I would suggest is lighten up your hardware on your float line. There are some float lines out there that have got like tuna long line clips, and they've got a big old shackle, and then they've got a big plug that goes into the float line, as the connector. Trim all that stuff down and make that thing as light as possible. What you don't want is for the float line to be dragging off to the side of you, so that and below you, so that when you shoot a fish, you potentially get tangled up in it. The way my float line is very, very lightweight. The metal connectors are. I took all that stuff off and I switched it out with other stuff. And anyway, I use like a pear clip that it's the shape of a pear, and it's got a little screw connector in the middle instead of like a clip or a spring or anything like that. So I literally just connect it. I'm not reconnecting it every time I get in the boat. I connect it in the morning and I'm pretty much done with that thing for the day.
Yeah.
If I want to switch between different guns, it takes me 30 seconds to unscrew it, put it on a new gun, and then screw it back down. But what that does is it saves me about, I don't know, I'll think in ounces. It'll save me 4 or 5 ounces, which is, let's say, 120 grams. That's a lot of weight. And so my float line, when I'm in the water, my float line is almost entirely up above me. So as I'm spinning around in the circle, oftentimes we'll go down and we'll kind of spin in a circle, or we'll go taking off after a fish. That float line's above me the whole time. I'm not worried about, it tangling up on my waist or anything like that, or catching my what I want to say, whatever that thing is called that's on my ankle.
Yeah,
the shark shield. So.
Did you know when coming up from a spearfishing dive, it's possible that you would feel 100% fine right until the moment you blacked out? Did you know being dehydrated or hungover increases your risk of having a blackout? Did you know I have never seen a person hit the surface and yell, "Dad, help, I'm about to black out, come save me"? No, they typically hit the surface, take a couple breaths, and then quietly sink into the abyss. Whether they live or die is 100% dependent on if you are close enough to grab them and take care of the situation. Did you know that if you have a loss of motor control or blackout and you continue diving that day, you are way more likely to have a much worse blackout? My name is Ted Hardy, the founder of Immersion Freediving, and I want to do more to stop the needless fatalities from shallow water blackout than any other person on the planet. And that's why I created freedivingsafety.com. You can learn how to reduce your risk of having a blackout, how to save your buddy's life, how to tell if you're wearing too much weight, and avoid breathing techniques that drastically increase your risk of having a blackout, and it's all for free. Go to freedivingsafety.com and sign up for my free safety course. Dive safe out there. It's not even that hard, especially when you learn for free at freedivingsafety.com.
Check out the hardest hitting, heavy duty, dirty dogtooth tuna mastering float line at oldmanblue.com.au. Not all float lines are created equal, especially when landing a shot in a big, dirty fighting fish that just wants to drown your float. Slow them down with the Old Man Blue heavy duty float line. It comes with a full brake system. Also included are heavy duty shark clips on both ends with D shackles. Included is a shock cord lanyard for keeping it neat and tidy on the boat. Check out the hardest hitting, heavy duty, dirty dogtooth tuna mastering float line at oldmanblue.com.au. Last time I was chatting with Lindsay, and I chatted with you about it on our call a few weeks ago. They've got that prod that's got the shark shield technology built into it. Yeah, what's it called?
Yeah, it's the E-Spear.
E-Spear. You're also a spear gun manufacturer, so I said, why not just integrate it into a spear gun construction? Have you given it any more thought?
Actually, I have given that very little thought. Not because it's a bad idea. I simply haven't had time to consider it.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's actually a really good idea. To put it on a spear gun. Now you're going to introduce additional weight, but just based on the technology, if you were to combine the surf unit and like the the surfboard unit, like the short board unit where you've got, an electrode running down the side and, one at the front, one at the back. The only tricky part is it would make it difficult for you to hold on to the gun anywhere other than by the handle. So if you grab the gun in the middle, you'd probably get shocked. But there's probably some ways to protect against that too. So that maybe just the electrodes on either end are conductive, and you've covered or shielded the other stuff, so you're not getting a shock. And then maybe putting the batteries inside of the stock of the spear gun or the handle or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting application.
There's internal real estate in spear guns, particularly in the large barreled ones, that we don't really make use of. And guys put ballast and stuff in them to get them to sit right anyway. I'm sure you could just, with some clever engineering, potentially adapt it fairly easily. Yeah. I'm sure there'd be some.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to look at the materials because, again, if it's carbon fiber conducts electricity. So now the whole thing is going to be electrically charged. If it's aluminum, the same thing is true. a wood gun potentially would. I could see that being the most user friendly, but I'm sure if with a little bit of creative thought, it's possible.
Okay.
And then the other idea, and you guys talked about this on the last podcast. What about making integrating it into a freediving fin? I know a guy that makes fins, and
You going to tell people
so
about that? Is that announced
I
yet?
might. Yeah, I think we can make that announcement. So, a very closely guarded secret, everyone. You guys are going to be the first people to hear this. I haven't even told my own mother yet. I just bought a company called Deep Apnea, and the old owner of Deep Apnea wanted to make a change, and we discussed it. And he's going to stay on and help me, kind of in a consulting manner. But yeah, so we are now the owners of Deep Apnea.
And Deep Apnea,
So
do they just make fins, or is there more?
there's a couple of other products. There's some hats, some T-shirts, stuff like that. They actually make a nice freediving bag. It's very simple, but most of these bags you got to kind of jam an 85 centimeter fin in and like work it to make it fit. Not with these. Put it in, zip it up. No problem. It's actually a well thought out bag.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
but yeah, the fins in question are they're hand laminated.
Yeah.
So everything's laid out. They're laminated, put in a press, and 2 hours later you have a fin popping out. So there's a little bit more to it than that.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I was going to say though, so potentially you like the idea of integrating it into a fin.
That's a really clever idea, and I think I would definitely want to look at that very closely. And see what we can do about that. The
one thing I tell people
product,
is ideas are free.
well,
Even good ideas.
That's the thing.
Oh, like I got a book, like it's 100 pages. I've got more than 100 business ideas. I do not have time for any of them. I'm flat out running this little Spearing podcast. Like, I've chatted with another guy about retractable float line and a float. I talked about because float lines is such a pain in the ass. But if it retracted like a automatic hose reel does, that'd be great. And then the other thing was maybe like a Minn Coda engine in it, and then the float sat directly overhead of you. Because sometimes the current wants to push it off you, or the wind pushes it off you, and the current pushes it another way. And then you actually know where the diver is from the boat because he's going to be directly under the float.
True.
But again, ideas are free. I love giving them away because I'm not going to do anything with them. I don't have time.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, well, I'm the same way. There's only so much time in the day, and God knows I've got enough stuff going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, to laminate in a couple of electrical contact points and some wiring, I think it's possible. I don't know what it would do to the flex of the blade yet, but that's something maybe we'll look at this year and fool around with a little bit.
Yeah, nice. So, I like it. Bit of synergy there between your companies.
Yeah, well, it's totally accidental, but hey, I'd rather be lucky than good any day.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, no, very cool, Ed. I really like it. I'm glad it's you in the driver's seat of these things too, because you've always been just a solid bloke. Like you're just easy to talk to, honest, straightforward. Like it's great. I feel like we've got Shark Shield back in the hands of a Spearo. And no offense to Lindsay and his team. Like I enjoyed chatting with them and yarning with them too. But I don't know. You understand what it is that we do, so I can only see good things from here. I had one last lot of questions with regards to Shark Shields. And a bunch of guys flagged this. So I'm thinking it's potentially, if you are going to make some moves with regards to iterating the product, it might be something you want to look at. Velcro strap questions. So Bradley says, can they upgrade the Velcro so that they stop falling off and remove the sensor that constantly fails for sensing if it's submerged? Anyway, we've talked about that one. Oh, hang on. No, he says the sensor that constantly fails for sensing if it's submerged. I had to send 4 units back because of those 2 under warranty and 2 just out of time or something. Anyway, I want to focus.
Understand.
the question.
I don't understand that at all.
So
well,
that's a power switch issue.
So no, I don't think so. I think what it is. So the way the Shark Shield device works, the antenna has a positive and a negative electrode, and when they're out of the water, the circuit is not complete because the air is not conductive enough. When you put it into salt water, i.e., in the ocean, the salt water is conductive enough to complete that circuit. And what happens is there's an indicator light that blinks on and off, and it will blink on and off because there's no circuit, or the circuit's not complete. And essentially what it's doing is it's showing you the number of times that it's pulsing in a second. That's what it's doing. But it goes solid green when it's submerged, meaning that the circuit is complete. And I hate to say this because it sucks when you do it, but there have been times where I've questioned, okay, I'm 7 hours into my dive day. Is this thing still effective? I don't know. So I'll reach down and I'll grab it, and okay. I know it's still working. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know why he would have 4 units that wouldn't work properly, but I would have to ask where he's diving. Is it possible he's in an estuary and there's a lot of fresh water?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Bradley asked that on the Facebook group. Maybe Brad can reach out to you. We'll share your contact details at the end. Talk with you direct.
Yeah. Just tell him to hit us up, and there was another question buried in there too.
Yeah, sorry. So, and this was the theme, and this is why they're all tagged together. Can they upgrade the Velcro so they stop falling off? Clayton asked, fix the strap so it stops falling off. Justin says, have a dive buddy who used them he was on his 3rd one as the strap kept failing and losing them. Andrew says, last one I got stopped charging after 12 months. The first one lasted 10 years, so not sure if the quality went down. And he says, also, as Justin said, I lost 3 where the strap failed and fell off my leg. And then Damien says, can they make a double Velcro strap?
Because he really doesn't want to lose it. Okay, so we got 2 things. One was a charging thing, right?
Well, I was more focused on the strap. I feel like there's 5 guys that have all mentioned the strap.
So remember the charging thing, though, because I'm going to forget about it.
10 years.
I want to answer that question because that's a fixable thing. Okay, the Velcro. It is not stretch Velcro, and I think some kind of stretch Velcro or neoprene on that strap would make it a little bit nicer strap. I think it would be a little bit more comfortable too.
Like a leg rope on a surfing leash.
Right. The way it is today, they've got a neoprene pouch that holds the device in place, and it can't really come out of there if it's in there if it's put in there the way it's supposed to be. It can't fall out. Then you've got the Velcro that is sewn to that neoprene pouch, and it's just 2 Velcro bands that go around, but they're nylon. Okay, so there's no stretch at all on that thing. So you've got to pull it tight and try to lock it on there. I'm always screwing with mine, because I take mine off half a dozen times during a day. Typically when I'm walking around in the boat, so I'm not just dragging it all over the place. I think if we were to introduce a little bit of neoprene in that strap, it would then stretch and people would be able to get it a little bit tighter. As for why people are actually losing it, I don't understand that one. That Velcro is pretty tenacious. So if they Velcroed it on there properly, now maybe if the Velcro is worn out, but if your Velcro is beginning to wear out, I would say give us a call and we'll swap that out for you if it's under warranty. And if not, it's not expensive to purchase a new neoprene pouch and Velcro strap for your Shark Shield device. I don't know what the price is offhand. I want to say it's less than $30.
Yeah, right.
So I'm pretty sure. Going back to that charging issue real quick, there are 2 poles that sit on the Shark Shield device, and those 2 poles they're stainless steel, but you take your charging unit and you plug it over top of it. Well, what can happen with those is you can begin to get a little bit of corrosion on it, and that corrosion will stop it being able to make good connection.
Yep.
And yeah, exactly. So just take a little bit of what I do is I take a Scotch-Brite pad and I just hit that with the Scotch-Brite pad every now and then. You guys have Scotch-Brite pads? I assume you do.
Yeah. It's ubiquitous, that one.
Okay.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They managed to dominate that niche.
Wait, do you guys live indoors? So
A little bit sometimes. We were born in tents, but
yeah,
that's what my mum
well,
said.
yeah.
Yeah. Ubiquitous. You get electrical contact spray as well, which probably helps a wee bit, especially for cleaning up corrosion. That makes sense. And it is funny that he said the same thing that you said, though, Ed. Like, he had one for 10 years and then he bought a second one and it lasts 12 months.
And that was the battery issue, I think he said. So he probably, one of two things. Either it took a hell of a shot and the battery died, because, again, lithium doesn't like
impact.
It doesn't like shock and it doesn't like vibration. Yeah, it's pretty sensitive stuff. But most likely he got a bad battery.
Yeah.
It's possible that's what happened. So again, if it's under warranty, send it in. If not, we can refurbish it and get it back to him, and the cost should be fairly low. So
I was going to say, you mentioned earlier, like, they don't like vibration, they don't like drops, they don't like heat, and I'm guessing they don't like cold either, because it'll be subject to Charles's law, the temperature, expansion and contraction and all that. So is there a recommended way, because like we're on boats, so everyone kind of understands the environment that we're operating in. What is the recommended way to travel with them and look after them best? Is there?
Well, we sell a neoprene bag that you can put your shark shield device in. The neoprene bag will help cut down on vibration and shock, should it be bouncing around on the deck of the boat. I'll be very honest with you guys, and here I am. I should be trying to sell this thing and tell you what a great thing the neoprene bag is. I take my shark shield and I have a bucket of stuff that I take with me. It's got my lunch in it. It's got a thermos. It's got a towel and a couple other things. And I usually toss the shark shield right on top of it.
Yeah.
And I do that so I don't forget it. It's right there, and I can see it as I'm walking out the door. So I know it's charged. But anyway, I keep mine on top of that. It doesn't sit down on the deck of the boat.
With white belts.
When we're coming back in, at the end of the day, though, it does sit back there most of the time, or it'll sit inside of a bucket. But I think dropping it on the deck of the boat is what kills them faster than anything else.
Yeah.
If you're dropping it from a foot and a half, 2 feet, it's just like dropping any other electrical device. You're going to damage something. So
yeah. Well, when I buy phones now, I've learned just to spend $100+ on a case, because I'm just one of those guys that drops and breaks stuff. Like, case in point, bought a brand new GoPro 10 for a WA trip. First day I pulled it out, I tied it to the canopy on the roof, and then my mate Bert, he's got 2 speeds, stop and full send. And this thing just bounced around, shattered the screen within 30 seconds. And the GoPro 10, it still works, but the screen at the back's just cactus. And but that's my life. That is the story of my whole life. Like, I buy a brand new phone and drop it the next day. So I spend the money on the cases and stuff. With the shark shields, they do seem like a fairly robust unit, but like, we are in a dynamic environment. I can see, if I had one, I think I'd break it. I'm just
we'll make sure you get one. So I'm pretty sure that you'll own one here in a short period of time.
I'll just be electrocuting my students, telling them how great it is.
There you go. So it's funny. I teach freediving classes, and for a long time I didn't wear a shark shield. And occasionally you'd have a run-in with a shark. Most of them were pretty benign. And man, this is kind of a messed up story too. So I'm out one day. Well, you'll see why I say it's kind of messed up. So I'm out one day, and I'm with some students, and we're in 70 feet of water. We're done with the class. So now we're just free diving up and down on the line. So at this point, I trust them to safety, because they've all passed. And these are all scuba instructors. Okay. So they're very competent in the water. So I drop down to the bottom. I'm laying there. And as I'm getting ready to come up off the bottom, I see a bull shark. It's pretty small, like a little 6-footer. And he's probably 50 feet away from me. And I'm like, God damn it. I know as soon as I move, he's going to get curious and come to me. And he does. And he is all excited about me. He just cannot get enough. So anyway, he basically passes or chases me and makes multiple passes at my fins as I'm on my way up the float. Now I get to the surface. The shark circles 2 or 3 times. He's jerky, man. He is just zip, zip, zip all over the place. I'm like, man, this is really bad. And I'm hollering at the captain to throw me the gaff or something. So I've got something to push him away. But my students are all pretty calm. But anyway, shark goes away. So I'm sitting there on the float, and I don't know if I should finish the story or not. Anyway, I'll go ahead and finish. Well, I'll go ahead and finish it, and it has no bearing on the product in question. But anyway, I made a comment about the fact that I wish I would have had my shark shield because I don't think that the shark would have come there. And one of the other people said, "Oh, well, if you'd have had, you'd have been okay." And I'm not a fan of that particular product, so I crapped on her about it. And I said, I don't believe those things work. Well, it turns out that she is related to the owner. And I felt, it was one of those things. I put my foot in my mouth, but at the same time, I stood behind my conviction. I don't think it would have kept that shark from making multiple passes at me. Yeah. To be quite honest with you, I don't know that the shark shield would have kept it from making multiple passes. It just wouldn't have gotten us close. So
yeah. Those young dumb sharks seem to be the worst because the big ones get smart for a reason. Like they are generally they're quite risk averse, and unless their blood's up, that's when they start becoming dumb because it's like they revert and they're just in their sort of but the young sharks are just way more unpredictable. They don't have to be big. They're just stupid, though, sometimes.
Well, I've got a theory on that. Number one, you're right. They don't have life experience. Okay, so that's a big thing. But I think the other thing, we were on a wreck one day, and there were like 7 or 8 different sharks that we saw. They were all different sizes, had different scars, all that kind of stuff. And we were out for a while, so we're putting up with them. Well, midway through the day, I had one come up and get after me, and I was just diving. And this thing came up off the bottom 140 feet, straight up, and came right up, got right underneath me and swimming back and forth, all excited and everything, and then it swam off. And my belief is that shark was challenging me because I was in its zone. That shark is the low man on the totem pole.
Yeah.
That particular shark was the smallest one in that group, and size matters with them. So he came up to force me out of his area. And I've always said a shark that is feeding or a shark that is territorial are the 2 sharks that I really worry about. And I think, that one was just being territorial. So
sometimes the analog is, sharks are most often compared to dogs. And sometimes the analogy is a little bit crude and it falls short. And in other ways, it is quite apt. Like body language matters. They have a hierarchy. There's a dominance hierarchy. There's clear body language things that you can do to deter them. However, they're also, I'd say they're far more unpredictable than dogs. And there's no bark.
Yeah.
There's just like, obviously, like you mentioned, ambush predators. I think I read the other day, it's like 70-something% of attacks. The person had zero awareness that the shark was even there. Like, they're sneaky and smart. And whereas a dog is like, they bark, they give you a warning. Their body language, their heckles are up. I mean, you get similar stuff out of a shark, like in terms of the body language of it. But if you don't friggin' see it, because you don't hear it, because we don't, that's a huge disadvantage, and that's where the analog falls short, I guess.
Yeah. Well, also a dog isn't trying to eat you.
No, it's
and,
just like you mentioned, like it's normally protecting something or someone or there's something going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you're talking about territory, yeah, that's absolutely true. Those dogs will they'll make some noise. They'll bare their teeth,
Mm.
But
This is my spot.
sharks, they just come in and
They just come
exactly.
in and
Sharks,
buzz you.
they just come in and try and muscle you off. So and they can do it to each other, and they'll survive. They bite one of us. That's not going to be such a happy day.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, it's a good conversation. Ed, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I reckon we probably need to wrap this thing up. I've stolen 2 hours of your time, but it's absolutely awesome to catch up with you again. We're going to have to catch up again in the near future. I guess maybe when you guys are fully back in launch mode and we're getting this the Deep Apnea stuff fired up as well. Like it'd be good to have another conversation with you.
Yeah. Let me know. I'm always available. Even if we just do a quick 5-minute update. You know. But again, we'll have lots of stuff out on social media here soon. And me being a totally serious guy all the time, you can bet that all of our Instagram stuff is going to be like,
tongue in cheek.
Yeah, there might be a little bit of that. So we came up with a great idea for one today. We'll see if we can get it produced. So
you're not gonna give it away?
Oh no. It's let's just say that we're talking about protection. So and you can think about that any one of 100 ways.
Oh, that's good. I like it. Ed, people have stuck around for a 2-hour interview. Is there somewhere like a lot of these issues, like there are people that are disgruntled, but they love the technology. They like the fact that someone's bought it. Can they reach out to you directly?
Yeah.
I won't link it up in the show notes, but if people,
if you want, I'm sorry. Let's put it in the show notes. I think the email address to use is going to be info@ocean-guardian, ocean-guardian.com.
Okay.
I believe. And myself, Jamie, or Joaquin will handle your question, and that'd probably be the best thing to do.
Okay.
Unfortunately, if you send it directly to me, and I'll give you guys my email is, well, God, what is it? ed.martin@ocean-guardian. But if you send it to me, there's a chance that it may not get seen for several days because I've got a lot going on, and unfortunately, I get a lot of email.
Yep.
So being able to dedicate the time to respond might be more efficient, or you might get a faster response going through one of the other people.
Yeah. And like you sort of said, like they have a good FAQ about the product specific stuff before, and you're going to develop a new FAQ based on where you guys are at now going forward. So that might be a really good first port of call. Ed, I'm going to link everything up today, noobspearo.com/shark shield, because last time it was Ocean Guardian, I think, and this time we're back to Shark Shield, and it's Spearo is at the helm, so it's going to be very much a Spearo-centric business, I'd imagine, going forward. No discredit to the team before, but it'll be cool to see what you guys can do with it in the next few years. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I just want to get them back out there in the stores again. Get them available. So, well, Shrek, thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. Your listeners are great. It's so funny. I have them come in the shop all the time and tell me, "Hey, I heard you on the podcast." Yeah. And it's like, well, I've only done like 3 podcasts in my whole life, so I think I know where we're at. So.
Awesome. Good yarn, Ed. Oh, guys, just quickly too, if you want, check out any of the things that Ed is involved with. It's killshotspearguns.com. There's obviously Ocean Guardian, which is relaunching now, and then we've got Deep Apnea as their website there, Ed.
Yep.
I'll link it all up in today's noobspearo.com/shark shield. So check it out.
Awesome.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed Ed Martin today, new owner of Shark Shield, along with a couple of others. It's pretty cool. Really like Ed. He's a super down-to-earth and honest guy. Really enjoy just having conversations with him. Like, he's a guy that I just get on and gas bag with off the podcast, off air for 3 hours of its own. I think we got off this podcast and still chatted for another hour and a half, even though it was really late at night for him. He's a great guy, and I'm looking forward to the future of Shark Shield. I hope you guys get in and support them too. You know, like it's these technologies and stuff in our tiny little lifestyle sport are rare. And I think we got to kind of band together, give feedback where we can, be part of that process of helping these things continue to grow and do awesome stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are too. Hey, thanks to the legends putting fuel in the Noob Spearo outboard week on week. Go to patreon.com/Noob Spearo. Join about 40 odd frothers in there. Just putting $1 in per episode, or $5 per episode, or $10 if you're an absolute, powerhouse giver. It goes a long way, I'm telling you. Next week, we are going to start on the Mackay podcast. So that will be takeaways, learnings, experiences, stories, and full-on froth from the Mackay Intermediate Charter, the Hardline and beyond. So it's going to be pretty fun. It's looking like we've got decent forecasts for that trip. So I'm really looking forward to bringing them when we get home. All good. All right, peace out, guys.
How cool is it going on a spearfishing adventure with like-minded frothers? I love tapping into this vibe and energy and being around people that have exactly the same values and want to just get their froth on for a week of spearfishing. If you are interested in doing a course, charter, or trip, I would love to hear about it. Go to spearfishingcourses.com.au/interested and register. Tell me where you want to do a course or charter. Let me know. And if I've got a bunch of people that are keen and like-minded, we're going to put that trip together and make it happen. Again, go to spearfishingcourses.com.au/interested and fill out your details there. And let's get some trips on the road and get out there and get our froth on with a spearfishing adventure of a lifetime. Are you US based, looking for freediving, spearfishing gear? Neptonics is the best. Their online website, so easy to use. If you've got any questions, Jerry and the team answer questions via phone, email. Anyway, they've got an easy contact form on the site. These guys are absolute legends, and if they sell it, they believe in it, they back it, they use it themselves. It's tough gear that works. Visit neptonics.com. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10% on any order at neptonics.com. That's right, use the code NOOB10, N-O-O-B 10 on your next order. Save 10% at neptonics.com. Today's Noob Spearo podcast is brought to you in partnership with Adreno. Live it, breathe it with the world's largest dive store. Huge range of equipment, always growing, always changing. They are the world's largest dive store. They are available just about everywhere. They have hassle-free returns, massive range of equipment, price match guarantee, and you can check them out online. You can even use the code Noob Spearo to save $20 on every purchase over $200 at adreno.com.au. Check them out. Boom.